What's going on, everybody? Metal Dad here, and once again, I'm here with Turbo.
Woo!
But we're here on a Saturday and not a Friday today because yesterday was a snowstorm here in Fredericton, New Brunswick.
Well, this is a Canadian podcast, and it's winter. It happens. This
Well-
ain't California. We're not Joe Rogan, California or Texas. Weather happens here a little more.
Weather is a factor.
Yeah.
So we decided to take the day off, but then I had the bright idea we were going to do it today. I didn't even announce it anywhere. I don't even. At this point, we're just gonna do them, and then we'll just post it afterwards because it's not like
That's right.
we have to worry too much. We're not famous yet.
No, and
We're on our way, but we're not there yet.
and it's not the radio either. It's not like things aren't. We can't. It's not recorded. It's there for posterity.
So I'm just gonna go live here on TikTok now.
Okay.
Oh, I got it. Oh man, I got to say this on camera here for a second. Oh,
yeah?
Jesus, I got I do have some TikTok drama, and I've probably got a whole bunch of comments here on TikTok.
Triple D TikTok trauma.
We'll go live on TikTok. We'll see who pops in and calls me a racist.
Oh. Oh, I think I saw that one. Yeah. Oh, well, you know what?
Well, she was being racist.
Okay.
So I can't remember exactly, but I just yeah, you're being completely racist for no reason. So it's like you're racist. Now I did make the wrong comment and say you didn't deserve your freedom. So of course the racist people are going to take as it if I'm telling a overweight black woman she didn't deserve her freedom and she needs to go back to being a slave. Yeah. When really from my perspective, it's you're living in a free country. And if you're going to treat everybody like shit, you don't really deserve that.
Yeah.
If you're going to sit there and oppress people by being racist, then
oppression will find you.
Exactly. And
no matter what you call yourself, whether you believe in race or not.
So
yeah, you got to watch.
That was the bad part.
There, eh?
That was the bad part of what I said. So a whole bunch of people started coming up on my comments and shit, and they were saying, "Oh, you can't call black people are allowed to be prejudiced." And I'm just like, no,
they're not.
No one's allowed to do that.
I mean, everyone's allowed to be.
But
it just makes you an asshole.
Yeah, it's not a good idea to do it.
No, it makes you an asshole.
So that was my TikTok drama for the week. So you were telling me before we got on air that you have some stories.
Oh, there's all kinds.
And some news to go over. I'm gonna go get the water to refill my thing here while you start your stories.
Well, there's all kinds going on in the world. We had our storms, and it's skiing season. That's the big thing. And I'm right into cross country skiing. And that's going to be my ticket. I've been waiting for it because I was sick and lost all my cardio and couldn't do jack shit and been trying to get back and not big on running, especially when you're a bit heavy framed for your size, which I am. Bit fat, but also muscle. Hard on the knees, right? And some people swear by running.
I know that.
It's not running. It's not for everyone, though. I don't believe that. Some of these people, they swear and they do, you do it with running and stuff. It's like, yeah, well, it's not for everybody, man.
Not everybody's built to be a runner. Like everybody can learn how to run, but we do have different body types and body frames, and other people are. It's a very okay. Let's use race for a good thing.
Okay.
Because black people have that extra tendon in their ankle, makes them run faster.
Yeah, not all of them, though.
Not all of them, but the ones that are mixed with white people and other races probably.
No, but I mean, it's just like which black people. Some black people are really.
I guess I'm generalizing and stereotyping again, like the Kenyans and shit, maybe.
Yeah, well, that's just it,
Or maybe it's the altitude.
Depends where you go. I mean, if you look at if you're looking at the African continent, there's so many different cultures and types of people and builds and shapes and looks and All
right, so you poked a hole in my theory again.
Yeah, well, I mean,
okay, well, let's bring race out of it again.
It's like, well, because if that was true, why wouldn't all the pygmies be winning all the things? But you know what? If they had
some of that's nutrition and shit too, and training elevation, and
if they had a high heat, long distance, medium paced walk, they'd probably destroy everybody. Because those guys go on those epic hunts, and they're never rarely running, but they're
always going.
It's a good clip. They're walking pretty quick, and
that was me in the military,
so cool.
Actually. Like I always had a hard time running because of asthma, and I couldn't. I was breathing through one nostril my whole military career. So there's one thing.
Okay,
got that solved now. So running's a lot easier.
Yep.
Yep. So, but that was me in the military, though. I couldn't run worth a shit and keep up. But when we were walking, and you gave me enough, you can put all the weight you wanted on me, and I would walk forever.
Yep. Yeah.
So you're right. Body types for different body types.
Yep. and different running things. I mean, for example, there's a really cool book on what's it called? Not Born to Run. Scott Jurek wrote that one, but there's another one I think he wrote. Can't remember what it's called. Anyways, it was about Crete, and those guys were epic runners, during the Nazi invasion of World War II.
Okay.
And so, long story short, as I can only remember this version, Crete was like a really pivotal position, and the Nazis wanted it to use it as a launching point. It was really important, right? Strategic, I guess. And the Brits knew that. And so they sent in these special forces guys when they just developed like the special forces. Anyways, they got in and got meeting up with the locals. And what they didn't expect was that these guys were just phenomenal runners who could go up. And it's not just a typical marathon, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'd be going up the mountains and over these crazy dangerous rocks and old goat paths and for ridiculously long runs and these dangerous things. And the actual British agents learned the tricks from the local Cretans to how to how they did these walks and the technique they did. And it's sort of, he in the book, he kind of goes in about how there's a sort of shuffle, they call it. And in a lot of the ultra runners do this, you can't just sprint, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's not like normal marathon running. There's this kind of like shuffly run you do, and it's easier.
I was reading about
right?
something like that in one of the books that I read. He was saying, he didn't talk about the shuffle or anything. He just said he had to run at a pace where his heart rate was so slow that he barely noticed it.
Yeah. And this goes back in this book. They go back to the ancient Greek Olympics and stuff, and how originally it was the guys from Crete dominated for years. And then eventually they started hiring some of the Cretan trainers to the other Greek cities. And then they adopted their techniques, and then they finally started breaking through. But one of the big techniques was like when you go to run, for example, you walk and you just go, to low heart rate, breathe through your nose, don't worry about it, and increase. But the minute your heart rate starts going up, slow down. That means you're training too hard, and you'll eventually get faster so that you can perform at that. And that's how these guys could go in these epic things, because they would never run too fast. No matter how freaked out, no matter who was chasing them and how scary it was and how many soldiers, there was all kinds of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They would just pace themselves. And then, biologically, we just work better that way, right? Anyways, really, really cool. So I do a lot of that in my skiing. So especially now that I'm kind of a little more hip to that, I read that book last winter, I think it was, but I'm really applying it. It was like, okay, I'm kind of starting from nothing. I did my third run on the skis. And the first one was I went super gentle, and the conditions weren't that great anyways.
Yeah.
And then I went on the second one, went a little bit better. That was yesterday yesterday during the storm. So near the tail end of it, around 3:00. So I wanted to make sure there was sun. So my buddy Eamon, who's wicked backcountry skier, downhill skier, just awesome athlete. But he's my ski mentor, right?
Yep.
He's the guy who got me hooked. So we went out and we were breaking trail and having just a great time. And we were going pretty far. And I was pumped. We were talking and stuff, talking politics. And it's cool because we're kind of on, I wouldn't say opposite sides. We definitely look at the vaccination thing a little bit different. He's more in the conservative view, and, but we have great discussions. It's a lot of fun. And so we were going up and talking while we're skiing, which was cool. And I was pushing it going up the hill, and I felt like my chest go like, oh, I was like, I gotta slow down, man, and take a breath. Yep. And we got to the top. I think it was just the muscles, because I'm always kind of worried, damage my heart or something, right?
Your diaphragm?
No, my heart.
Oh, because sorry, I was thinking about your muscles.
Because it was swollen up when I first got sick in the summer until like October type thing.
Okay.
So, and like that's for just as a side note, that's why with the vaccines, they say if you go get a shot, if you go get your jab, you're dumb enough to do it, or whatever you want. Sorry, but if you go get it, they say you shouldn't do any hard exercise for at least 2 weeks. Because what if you're that 1 in a million, even or one in more, but right, that's the conservative view. If you're one of the 1 in a million and you don't know you've got a bit of myocarditis going, your heart's slightly swollen, you can die. And that's probably why these soccer players are all dying, because it's bar none the most cardiovascular, not cardiovascular, cardio intense sport, right? Huge fields, they run like crazy, and these guys are fit as fiddles anyways. But I mean, it's hard, so they might not know they've got a bit of heart swelling. They're always training hard, they're always sore and beat up anyways.
Hockey players would say maybe they're doing a little bit,
but
I hear what you're saying with soccer
players. The soccer players, more than any other sport, are the ones getting all these troubles, right?
Yeah,
and dying.
They are doing a little bit more hard cardio for sure.
But that's what they say. It's the most hardest cardio of all, right? And so
that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Imagine a
constantly moving,
hockey
right?
rink that was 3 times the size.
Yeah, and no breaks.
Yeah, no breaks, and I don't know why. What else would? Yeah, it's running. You know, like skating, you can be, not that hockey players aren't in shape.
They're just intense. It's just a little bit more intense.
Efficiency of it. Yeah, and it's just good old fashioned giver, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's why a lot of these guys may be doing it. They don't realize maybe they have a bit of myocarditis.
Rugby would have been a better fit for
that type
hockey
thing too. Yeah. And there's just more soccer players. I think that's the other thing too.
Yeah.
Look, everywhere in the world they play soccer.
It's the biggest sport in the world, isn't it?
Yeah, hands down, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's my
also
thing.
known as football.
So I went, football. So foosball. So that's why I when I'm doing, as I do this, I was like, I got to get back into shape. I got to get my cardio. I still have some diaphragm problems, but I went, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be smart about it. I'm going to do this breathing technique where I breathe through my nose. And every once in a while, I'll catch myself. I got to do a big, and if anything, I'll only push out a bunch of air. I learned that in kickboxing, was from some of the guys. My buddy Justin Lee showed me that. I mean, they all know it, but I remember him teaching me that. He's like, you're getting winded, you're breathing in too much, you're going to hyperventilate. Breathe out, just get rid of that carbon dioxide. Don't worry about it, right? And of course it works, right? You just get rid of it and then don't have to breathe in as much. And I was always under the impression like, you got to get all that air, but it's the opposite. You got to get it out. Yeah. So every once in a while, I'll just get a big puff out the air and then back to my nose. So that's what I'm doing. And today and yesterday we had a good go. I think yesterday I probably added about a third since the initial one. And then today we had tons of snow. They actually groomed the trails. It was just gorgeous and sunny out. I felt good. So I doubled it. I didn't intend to, but when I got out there, I just felt great.
You just went for it.
Yeah, and he was showing me there's a trick with the poles. They have these cool gloves that kind of fit in it. It kind of grips over your hand, so it's catching the bottom of your hand. So instead of having to squeeze the pole and force it down sort of thing, you have the strap and the gloves on your hand. You just pull your arm down, and it pulls the glove with you, so you don't squeeze.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you just pull, and then and instead of lifting the poles up and wasting all that energy, you just sort of drag them on the ground. Because instead of having the pole and then you have this big circle, it's just the pole.
Oh, dude, we're going deep. This is a deep dive into cross country. Keep going.
It's so fun.
Keep going.
Fun. So you just it's a very efficient movement. So it's great and so I'm using this technique of.
I didn't know I was going to learn about this today.
Oh, super fun.
Sorry, I'm interrupting. I don't mean to.
If you can't tell,
kind of excited.
I got really hooked on cross country skiing. 3 years.
It's wearing off on me.
2 years ago, I started doing. I had some old ones, and I finally tried it. It wasn't very comfortable, and I told Eamon about it. I was like, "Yeah, I went out for a run. It was kind of hard on the feet, and hurt my feet, and it was kind of uncomfortable." And he's like, "Oh, well, what's your gear?" And I showed him. He's like, "Oh, that's why. It's like old crap from the '80s." So I borrowed his, went out for a run, and it was like right away. I was keeping right up with him and having a blast, and I was quite fit then, and
just loving it.
Oh, and it was like, okay, I was hooked. So last season I bought some good boots and skis, and I used crappy poles, but it was okay. And just had a blast. So now this year I got good poles, and it's like, and I have an excuse. It's not just like fitness; it is fitness, but it's like I gotta get healthy, and I got so I'm having a very clinical approach to it and being very smart about. I mean, I kind of went buck wild today, but again, I didn't go buck wild. I was like, yes, I went extra, but as long as I follow my breathing pattern.
Well, when you get into the zone, man, you got to get into the zone.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm totally out of shape. I mean, I'm out of shape, but it's still there. And I've been walking, I've been prepping for this, right? So,
well, muscle memory will kick it back in at some point once your body's like, I know you had surgery and everything, so
I didn't have surgery, but
medical
issues. Yeah. My heart swelled up and it was weird. So
I should have said you had medical issues, so you had to heal from that, and then but before that you were in shape, so all your muscle memory, once you can start moving again, will start kicking back in, and then you'll just be like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this, and the placebo effect and everything.
Outside and it's cold. I love the winter. I love when it's cold, the breath of fresh air, and you're in the woodlot surrounded by the pines, and it was awesome. I grabbed some Eastern pine on the way back. I'm gonna make some tea when I go home.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I love pine tea. So kind of getting in the zone, getting my mind right, getting spiritual and all that kind of stuff. So so for a wicked ski today. But in the news. So.
Oh, now, okay. We're getting heavy now.
Yeah.
Hold on. Where's my tinfoil? I don't have any.
There's no tinfoil involved in this.
Oh, okay, let's go.
Kazakhstan.
Okay. Apparently the headquarters of the New World Order.
Right, which you could say tinfoil, but that's not tinfoil at all. They changed it to Al Nursat. And if you look, that capital city, that whole little region where they have like the Capitol building and stuff, behind like their White House looking building, there's a pyramid.
I think I remember hearing something about it
before. This building is a pyramid with a little glass section on the top and then a triangle that looks exactly like the all-seeing eye like you see on the American dollar bill.
Yeah.
Like
literally they made a glass pyramid.
Is that up top in that little section is like a little sun eye sort of thing. Like it's in there. Yeah, it's got the twin towers, the twin gold towers. It's all Masonic stuff. Yeah, creepy. But Kazakhstan, I think it was 48 hours ago, they said with the V-Pass, like their fuel costs are just pumped right up through the roof. Right? Like it's super expensive. And on the news, they're saying, there's big riots because of the fuel cost. That's not why there's the riots. They put in the V-Pass at the bank. If you don't have a V-Pass, you can't go to the money and go to the bank and get your money. Right? And they were not having it. Boys said enough's enough. Huge riots. Burned the Capitol building.
What?
Like several floors. Beheaded 2 policemen. What? Several other were killed because the president said on the news and on the on the national TV, we're going to shoot and kill protesters without hesitation. Because so the boys are like, no, and he was always heavy-handed anyways. And that's one of the richest nations in that region.
Yeah.
But of course,
nobody knows about it.
Well, for who? Right? It's the 1%. There's a very tiny fraction making a fortune, and everybody else is just scraping by.
They kind of hid it in the middle of right above the Middle East, in between Russia and China.
Exactly, right? Because there you got Kyrgyzstan's below it, China or Mongolia. Yeah. Yeah, right. So, anyways, cool people, and they had enough's enough, and ousted the military. Now they shut down the internet and all cell service. So no communications coming out of Kazakhstan, but there's some sneaking out. From what I've heard, the president, his son, top military officials all fled the country.
Really?
Yeah. They got to the armories. The boys got to the armories. So we're supposed to send forces in, this, that, the next thing, UN forces, who knows? But I don't know if that'll happen because, people have got into the armories, so you're not necessarily just going to go in when they've got all the guns and rocket launchers and everything else, right? So, and
they're pissed off, and they're not going to give a fuck. They're going to be like, "Get out of my country, bitch!"
Yeah. And the people have stood up and they said, "Enough is enough," because they had certain demands they were doing, but they had a list of demands, and one was he's got to go. And they kind of changed it, but it's about the V-Pass. It's like they're just like, no, we're not having it. We're not doing mandatory shots. We're not think about it. It's like you can't have money unless you get your shot.
Yeah.
So they're not having it. Interestingly enough, in Canada, our new health minister, who is the World Economic Forum puppet, He's trying to put in mandatory vaccines across Canada, and there's all these polls. Like you'll see CTV always has a poll going on, and right now it's like 76% non. A lot of people vote against it, but the CTV is owned by BlackRock and Vanguard. Like I think it's BlackRock owns them. So I mean, it's not like it's a big shock, but but yeah, they're trying to push that in Canada and they're going for it. But you look at what happened in Kazakhstan, they're not having it, man. And
I've seen some in Australia too. Like I don't know what's going on down there, but I've heard that they're hauling people out of their houses in Australia and they're forcing vaccination across the whole country, just like they kind of did in New Zealand a little bit. But I have seen some videos from Australians on TikTok, and they're like, "Listen, just wait and see what's going to happen in Australia here. It's on. We can't tell you anything, but something's going to happen." And it's just like, oh shit! Like you said, the boys are getting fed up, and they're like, enough is enough.
Within Australia, they were doing that a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago, especially up north. I don't know if you call it up north, but if you look at the map, Sydney's down here, whatever, up north. A lot of these Aboriginal communities, and they were flying the military in to force inject people, and a lot of from what I saw was a lot of the guys in the military were being put on leave because of huge PTSD. They couldn't handle it because they're just like, what are we doing? Like, we're in our own country, going to Aboriginal communities and hauling people out of their homes and forcing them to be quarantined and injected, and kids are running away from the camps. And so a lot of the military guys were going on, sick leave because they just couldn't handle it. And that's where some of these reports were leaking. And, the boys don't want to do it, but it's this top brass thing, right? So,
it's the higher echelon. It doesn't have anything to do with it. They're not the ones actually down there doing it. It's easy to point the finger and say, you go do that over there.
Yep.
Right. Yep. And then it's easy to say, oh, he couldn't do it. Send somebody else in to do it. Oh, he couldn't do it. Send somebody else in to do it. Exactly. Oh, he couldn't do it.
Yep.
On and on and on and on and on and on. I got caught in a loop there.
Yeah. And they actually burned the old, not the, you see where there's the big protests in Australia in front of I think it's the president, whatever they call it.
There might have been leftover shrooms in
there. The Parliament building. They burnt the old Parliament building. There was a big little protest going on, and they were supposed to be doing the smoke ceremony. Anyways, they burned half the building. They burned the front doors and stuff. So, yeah, people. They're fed up. They're fed up, right? And you won't see it on the news. You'll never see the real what people are actually up to.
Oh no, you won't. Right? So it's only what they want you to hear and what they want you to keep gargling down your throat, right?
Yeah,
it's exactly. Like still, fucking a year later, and still people are walking around going, "Oh, it's all the Trumpers." It's like, no, like, yeah, okay, he was the president for 4 years, but why are you still bringing his name up? Like, what's the deal here? Why are we even worried about that? And it's now it's coming out that they were, I can't remember, but they're doing they're going over the whole insurrection thing again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's starting to be looking really bad because it's looking like there's no insurrection, but they're claiming insurrection. And if you look at what actually happened there was a bunch of peaceful people that just stood out front of the building, and then somebody let them in.
Yeah, the police opened the doors and then they guided them, and
nothing got destroyed at all.
No, I think they stole the one podium, and one guy got busted for trying to sell it.
Like I heard a couple laptops went missing.
Yeah, and I heard they didn't go to the average people.
There may or may not have been a staged shooting. Yeah. Like there was a shooting, but was it real?
Yeah,
I don't know, because it looked like it looked pretty fishy to me.
Yeah,
I've seen a bunch of different videos and a bunch of different cuts and angles and things, and
and who knows where those laptops went? Is a good question,
right?
Yeah, so who knows? So there's that. Then what else? So we're kind of but in our own backyard, so it's interesting, what this health minister's up to. They're trying to push the mandatory vaccines and then trying to get the provinces to push it, right? So then I think it's kind of up to the provinces. They gotta. So they again,
Is that
he makes
so?
his
That's why
little
they're
statement.
locking. So that's why they're locking us down right now, is in order to convince us that they have to vaccinate everybody now in order to let everybody out of lockdown. Even though it's being proven that it's the vaccinated that are the ones spreading everything, because they're the only ones going out into the places where everything's are spreading.
Yeah, and the FOIA request, I forget the name, the organization that did it. They're 500 Canadian doctors. So remember, Pfizer's results weren't going to be released till 76.
Oh,
Well, that's all changed.
really?
Yes.
Tell me about how it changed.
Well, I don't know if it was frontline doctors. I should forget. I'll just kind of skim over, but I forget who they were. I think it was them. I don't remember. Anyways, there's a group of over 500 Canadian doctors who are against the vaccinations and the policies, and are saying, "Hey, whoa, let's just stop hit the brakes and see what the hell we're doing." Because all the data, as you know, it's all about modeling. Oh, we're going to have, remember, we're going to have these many deaths. We're going to flatten the curve. According to the modeling, we're going to have these, right? Then it didn't
I remember
happen.
hearing something about modeling. Yeah.
Modeling is the
I think I saw a video on this.
Probably because,
Refresh it.
Yeah, well, the top thing is you go, clinical trials are the best way to find out if, things are working. And then you go down the list, and modeling is the last one. It's the worst method which makes sense. It's a model. It's not
accurate.
It's an educated guess.
It's 100% guesswork.
Yeah, exactly. Based on, whatever data you have, and the limitations of your data make your guess better or worse, right? So anyway, so it's all based on the modeling, and the modeling has clearly not been paying off. So, but that's how you fool people, right? Like, oh, well, we got these models, and that's how they sold it.
That's why they're saying cases.
So these doctors got the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act, and got the file of the results. Well, the 95% efficacy, that's relative risk reduction. I forget how they get that, but the real number you want is actual risk reduction.
Actual risk reduction.
The actual risk reduction is less than 1%.
So that means that you have less than 1% chance of getting the vaccine,
of it doing its job,
so the vaccine working.
Yeah.
So
how many people, when they said, oh, it's 95% effective or 90% reduction in symptom, whatever, would have, that's what everybody saw. And it was like, oh, well, that's great. I'll sign up for that. But if you took someone and said, well, it's only going to make a 1% difference, would you do it? Not such a big benefit then, is it?
Yeah.
Right? Let alone, what are the odds of these side effects? And as that comes out, they really played around with the tests, with the trials. So, for example, a lot of the people who were in the placebo group halfway through switched over to the testing group. The one young girl, Maddie is her name, and she's the young kid who, she got super sick, right? Well, they said she had gastrointestinal issues. And so because of the gastrointestinal issues, they removed her from the trial, right? She didn't have gastrointestinal issues. She was having seizures and loss of mobility and all kinds of like that poor kid got really, really sick, right? But none of that showed up in the trial. And her family had been trying to make it public, like since this all started, going, this is not what happened. This is, they lied about what happened to our kid. She's not in the trial. None of these things hit the study. So they were playing around with it, and it's nasty. It's nasty. And the majority of people have no idea about this because, of course, this should be top breaking story. Like if we had actual news, there'd be the breaking story around the world, and they'd be going around the clock. And like when that insurrection happened, in CNN, that was the only story you saw for 24 hours. That should be the story.
It boggles my mind that all of the fake stuff is thrown at everybody's face all of the time, but all the real stuff. I've noticed that a lot about life in general. lately. Like I've been doing a lot of introspection, a lot of like I told you before we got on air, I haven't really been paying attention to the world for a lot of other reasons, but most of all,
got to be done once in a while.
Yeah, but most of all, it was about just me being introspective of myself and just what is the problem that I'm facing, because I feel like everybody just doesn't want to believe the truth, and it doesn't matter what.
Mass psychosis, right?
Yeah, like, and it doesn't matter what. It could be as simple as your partner doesn't want to see you for who you are, because at some point in time, a lie was told and triggered a trauma, and then all of a sudden, from that moment forward, you looked at somebody with the wrong tint of glasses.
Yep.
Right?
It can happen.
And then that's what's happening with what's going on now. Like people are just like, oh, I got my third shot and my booster. It helps me keep my job.
But it's not like, helping your health. Right?
Yeah, I get that. Like,
you've been lied to.
But you're also being overworked now. And you're not asking yourself, why are these people, so against it that they'll lose their livelihood? But you're just sitting there doing it yourself. Just like, I understand people got to get by. Like that was the genius of what they did.
Yeah.
They made a scenario, and they did it innocently enough that they could just kind of take little paper cuts out of you and just go one at a time and one at a time. Like what a narcissist does to their victim as he's breaking them down and making them feel like less of a person and like they can't live.
The powers that be are narcissists.
Yeah.
Right?
And
they think
1,000 paper cuts, right?
Yep.
It's
I'm
going to have a brain moment here for a second because that all triggered like.
But the wall is crumbling.
It feels like it.
It is.
It feels like a lot of illusions are crumbling. Mercury's going back into retrograde. Venus is in fucking retrograde. I think it's in retrograde right now. I might be wrong. I don't really have the dates memorized.
I don't know anything about that stuff. I've always been curious about it.
But shit is shifting. And it all leads into the stories like I was telling you before we got on air and everything. Everything's just massively shifting. And it's just like, okay, when's it all going to crumble? When's it all falling down?
So that's it, So there's that a lot going on. So, kind of interesting, So we'll see what happens, because that's it. As this stuff comes out, that's when they want to double down with these things. And of course, or they try and suppress the information.
One of my videos got flagged. One of them was one of the Justin Trudeau videos that I was.
That piece of shit.
It got flagged on Instagram or no, it was Instagram, I believe.
Why? What'd you say? Or what did it say?
I think it was the one where he was talking about taking away our rights.
Right.
Where he's just like, I know that it goes against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, but there's a loophole where if 80% of the people want it, then we can force the other 20% into it. And it's just like, no, you can't.
Well, there's some other news in relation to him as well.
He's a traitor?
Well, no, I mean news, not old news.
I just wanted to call him a traitor.
This is new old news.
Turns that video didn't get flagged.
This has been floating around recently, and it seems to be legit. And what it was is that in 2019, he was involved in a sexual assault case with a young minor well under the age of 17. They don't say the age. And had her sign a $2.5 million settlement to sign a non-disclosure agreement, where if she was to disclose any of the information about said case, she would face a penalty. I think it was $500,000. So, right, and so at a 2.5, how much of that settlement went to the lawyers? So the kid probably got away with $1 million, right? Non-disclosures. So, as this is coming to light, and it seems pretty legit, that's big news, right? Because don't forget, remember it was right before COVID all hit. They split up sort of deal, right? him and Sophie.
Oh, I have a whole theory on that.
So, well,
Oh, buddy, I'm frothing at the mouth right now.
They're
I'm
on
just
the
like,
Epstein
whoa,
list.
Oh, yeah,
right?
I was trying to say.
He's on the list.
Yeah, he was there. He was on the list.
So
Ghislaine Maxwell named him on the list. That's all I'm going to say. And then that goes with your story there. He hung out with that pedophile that lived in Winnipeg that got busted. Remember him? The fashion guy?
Neugard.
Nygaard.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was, they were all in that circle. The Sophie thing. Yeah, that happened. That happened as soon as Sophie was, diagnosed with COVID-19?
Yeah, she got it first, right? Yeah.
And I heard something interesting about that. All those people that came out with COVID at that point in time, apparently, maybe, they were said to have had COVID because they cut deals.
Right. Yeah. Because, hey, say you got COVID, and then it looks like, and it was a lot of high-profile people, too.
Tom Hanks got COVID, and then all of a sudden he was living in Greece where pedophilia is legal.
Yeah, and all that kind of weird shit. Yeah.
Like, we can fact-check and see if that's still a thing, but I haven't heard anything from him since then.
Well, I remember it was all these high-profile people were getting it. And at the time, it was all fresh and new, and I was thinking, I thought, well, these are the people who fly around all the world, and all the rich people only hang out with rich people.
Yeah.
And, or
why would they hang out with the peasants?
Well, but even they do, though.
Some do, yeah.
No, but they do, but they don't hang out with them. They're served by them.
Oh, yeah, I see where you're getting at.
Because, the millionaires and billionaires travel around the world, but they're all served by their little servants and peons. And, these are normal people, right? There's not really, yes, they have their mid-level managers, but really there's the janitors, there's the cooks, there's and all that stuff comes from somewhere. So I thought well, maybe that's why they're catching COVID. Right, because they're all flying around, and all these Chinese millionaires and stuff. We're all still are flying, especially at the time. We're flying all over the world.
Well, that's too easy. That's how
living the good life.
Really, that's how everybody catches COVID.
Right.
Let's be real here.
But now it's like, maybe.
Well, you're looking back and you're seeing they all caught it, and they're all off on these weird spots and weird things.
Hindsight's 2020, and they all survived.
Well,
it's only now that geez,
like you said,
the famous Canadian director just died. There's been a couple high-profile entertainment figures, who have died recently and they've all been getting their shots. Yeah. What's his name? I can't remember the guy's name. We
can believe what's being presented to us. But at the end of the day, all of the research and everything that I've been talking to people about, that I've been going over, have me and you sat down and we sat down and talked about all the buildings around the world there.
That's the next part of the cool thing I want to talk to you about. I got some good stuff.
Because I was talking to somebody even about the Parliament building in Ottawa.
Okay, what'd they have to say?
Well, I came across this video on TikTok.
Okay.
And it's not that they had any. I was discussing something that I came across TikTok with.
Yep.
And it made reference to the fact that maybe when the Parliament building was built, maybe we didn't actually have the technology to do it. And that building was already there.
That's the mud flood theory. Yeah.
Yeah. So all of those buildings that are like that, like the Gothic buildings and even all of the ancient Greek buildings, all of those buildings were all kind of built at the same time by a bigger race. And they were built as all electromagnetic conductors in order to channel power through all of them because they were pulling power through the ionosphere.
Well, there's a million theories on how they did it. But one thing that's a common thread is this concept that they were probably there. And this is the mud flood thing. There's not everybody's got their own little version of it. Some people call it Tartaria. Some people call it this, and that.
Yeah, I've heard of Tartaria.
And that's interesting. But what I kind of like is
that's farther back than even these mud floods, I believe.
No, it's part of the same thing. Yeah.
Is that okay?
The Tartaria thing is
still going to look into mud floods.
The Tartarian idea is that this Tartarian society was all over the world. And that's why you see these buildings that almost all look the same. they have this sort of
Kind of like the Atlanteans,
right.
because Atlantis was supposed to be across the world
right.
too,
It's
not
just
just an island.
And it's kind of the same thing. It's right. And so the idea was then we had this mud flood, this reset, and the buildings are all buried. And then we came and people just started digging them out. And that's why you'll see a lot of these buildings, you'll see half windows and
Okay, yeah.
okay. So there's a lot of that. Turns out, so on a side note, there's a lot of that in New York City.
Yes, all over the world.
The Bronx. You ever see like the videos in the 70s and the 80s and 60s of New York? And they're like, you know, these black communities that are just destroyed and all the buildings, there's always crumbling buildings and stuff, right? Well, the thing is, a lot of those, and I saw this comment of a fellow who was a geologist working in New York. And he was saying, well, he was in the 80s, he was going around checking out, he'd go into the basements and he was looking at the different, the rock and I forget the two types of rock he said. His job is to go to check where the plates are. And, you know, they were doing like geomapping sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. But he started noticing this really weird stuff around these buildings and started talking to some of the old, like really old elderly people, 70s and 80s and stuff, and asking them like, yeah, your building looks really old. When was it built? And they're like, well, it was here when I moved here. You know, when I was born, I've lived here my whole life. And that was quite a common theme. So these buildings were all supposed to have been built in, you know, the 20s and 30s and 08 and stuff. They're like, no, they were old when I was born here. And
They were
really
already
old.
there.
So, yeah. And then a lot of people talking about how, well, growing up in New York, and you see a lot of these like basement apartments where they have these little windows, you know what I mean? And we have them here, right?
Yeah.
You know, where you just have like a little tiny transom window sort of thing. But a lot of people would have there'd be these whole huge full-size windows, but they'd be bricked up half the way or like 3/4 of the way. And always saying like, yeah, I always wondered why that was. Thought it was kind of weird. Because you wouldn't build a building and do it all the way. You would, even a transom, you know, like in the PMQs I grew up with, they'd have the little window, but you'd dig a little hole and there'd be the little aluminum tin, you know, thing. And just to make it so you could climb out in a fire, right?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't go all the way down and then brick it up. Like, that's just stupid. Like, they don't build buildings that way. You know, I mean, I used to do concrete foundations when I was a kid. It was fascinating.
Makes no sense.
Yeah. You build an entrance point and then you do all your work. And then at the end, when you're done, either that would be the stairs or the driveway, or you would just literally build some stairs on the inside and then fill it at the last moment or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, when they do the second floor or whatever. So, it's not kosher. So there's a lot of neat stuff like that. And in the New World, a lot of that. There's stuff like that. Same thing.
Like a whole city there's a whole city underneath Paris.
Yep. Underneath the Kremlin, there's tons of stuff. They found cars, they found trains, they like all kinds of crazy shit.
Really?
Oh, the Kremlin. I saw this in the 80s when I was a kid, and this stuck with me. This is why now, as I get into this stuff, it's just like, oh, two shows haunted me from childhood in a good way.
Sure.
One was, and this might have been the early 90s, probably early 90s, I think, because I think I'd moved back to Canada at that point. Anyways, it was this show about spelunkers in all over the world. You know, so spelunking is cave exploring.
Yeah.
Right. And these guys, there's a real famous one. I think it's I can't remember if it's in Iceland or where it is. There's all kinds there, volcanic ones. Yeah. There and all kinds of ones through Europe, and some of them, like this one in particular one, it might have been in Poland or something. It's super deep and dangerous. And it's a cave. It's not a big deal. It's just a cave. It's a natural cave. But the thing that makes it fascinating is it's like a mile deep, and there's, you know, and to explore it and to map it out, it's super challenging. So if you're into spelunking, it's, you know, top tier, right?
Yeah.
But they also featured this group of Russian spelunkers. And what made it unique was they weren't out in the ice. They weren't underwater. They weren't in Carlsberg Caverns. You know, they weren't in all the cool normal stuff we know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know about the Carlsberg Caverns.
No, but we'll get into those, I guess.
There's some in the States, but there's some in Europe too. I can't remember which one the Carlsberg. I think it's in Germany. I'm not sure, but might be France. But anyways, it's a cave and you go down and then it opens up and it's got all these like crystal formations, but it's like an underground cathedral. Okay. And it's fucking gorgeous. And there's water in there and it's out of this world insane. Right. But no, so these Russian guys, their deal was they go spelunking in Moscow. So they're not in the country. They're in this huge city. And in particular, every once in a while, they get special permission. And this was like, just post the wall coming down. I think that was kind of how they got away with it, because the wall came down. So it was like everything was kind of opening up. And so they'd get permission to kind of go so far, and they could only go do so much. But yeah, and they'd go down like 10 stories underneath the Kremlin and finding these doors and opening doors and climbing through stuff. And one thing they found was a Lada with dead bodies in it, that from the KGB type thing. Another one was from, they think it was probably from the,
that would be fucking creepy.
What was Anastasia's parents, their family, the Russian royal family? It was them or something before them, but basically, I think it was Alexander. Anyways, it was this entire train, like a whole, or I don't know, it was a whole thing, 2 or 3 cars and an engine and stuff of this like super highly decorated train on a track. So there's these old subway systems. They had no idea. And of course, what do they always say? They're like, well, civilizations were built on civilizations built on civilizations. And that's been traditionally how we in history kind of understand it. But it really kind of turned it on its head. It's like, well, yeah, dirt builds up and detritus builds up and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, to some degree. Although even that's a little shady, because it's like, well, how long have, the Roman streets been around? Well, how come they're not all covered up? Like, people sweep the streets. And the idea in the old days that, people just threw the garbage and it just piled up. Well, like, sort of, but no, there's people to clean it up, and that was jobs, and the dogs ate it. And, but anyways, and it can only go so much. And then, but so the idea is, so in Russia, yeah, there's like layers. So this is where the whole Tartaria thing, and what ended up happening was we have the internet. And one of the beauty things about the internet, the doubters always say, oh, misinformation, internet, misinformation, it's all bullshit, it's all conspiracy. Like, yeah, okay, it's all conspiracy.
Are we starting to get into the Greek legends of the Tartarians?
No. It's about, there's
or
pictures.
Tartarus, I
there's
should say.
Pictures online.
Okay.
And I used to go to museums when I was a kid. Super cool, right? But they can't show everything. They can't. There's only so much room. You have exhibits in the back. That's why they have exhibits. They switch it around, know, and even at the Beaverbrook downtown, you can't show all the paintings at once.
Yeah.
They got to switch them up, right? But online, you can see everything.
Yeah.
And you can save things.
No
and people have books. Like after the World's Fairs, they have these great, big, super expensive books with 200 pages, and all these pictures are online now. So slowly but surely, people have kind of been looking at these and asking questions and doing this, and you get a blog here and a blah, blah, and it's been building and building and building. And people are starting to really notice, like, this isn't adding up. Something's missing here. Something's weird. And the idea that, like, going, okay, well, just for fun, let's pretend history was wrong. And what all started out very fun and well in games is really picking up momentum and going, wait a minute. Wow. So the mud flood, that's the whole thing, is it's a real thing. The question is, well, everybody's got their own little spin and their own little take, and people are trying to understand it their own ways. I like to take a step back and go, well, wait a minute, let's just keep it in the world of what if, and there's legit questions that I think, legit archaeologists would probably, if they had the freedom, be able to go, okay, well, I'll play what if, you know what I mean? Because they're kind of bound. They got to prove everything, right?
Yeah.
But, given I think in some ways there's going to be a wonderful opportunity for that trade to kind of go, oh, well, maybe we can revisit some of this stuff. And so there's all kinds of cool, spooky stuff. And
it's odd that archaeologists are always some of the most well-kept, well-muzzled, like, people on the planet, it seems like.
Well, science has to prove it. So they can come up with a theory, but then they got to prove it. And if your theory is a bit too out of whack,
some water.
Sure, nobody wants to hear it, right? So, you know what I mean? Or if it's a little bit outside. But as we know, in medicine and science and in history and things, I mean, it's all the good ideas usually start that way. What was the German scientist who discovered the remains of Troy? And Troy was supposed to be a legend, right? With Helen of Troy and the big battle. And then he found it. So, and then it was like, now it's legit, right?
And then we find out there's like 3 or 4 different Troys.
Yeah, that's it, right? And, Göbekli Tepe was not supposed to be there. Like nobody knew anything. There's this, carved Stonehenge thing, fancier than Stonehenge, was buried in Turkey. Nobody knew that. And then there it is. And it pushed the timelines back. So, but the mud flood thing is very different because it really, if it's true, throw such a huge wrench into the whole thing.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Like if you're talking like there was whole trains and things in Russia.
And things like we may be in the year 1022. We might not be in 2022.
So you're talking like we've actually like 1,000 years.
Yeah. Like potentially there may have been, let's add 1,000 years so that it fucks up with the whole story of like Christ and it was really not that long ago and just fucking with history in general.
Well, we would never know because think about it.
Yep.
The only reason I think it's 2022 is because since I was born, that's what I was told it was.
Okay.
But then I went to Afghanistan and I realized it's a different year in Afghanistan than it is here.
What year? What?
Oh, dude.
So how's that work?
I can't remember off the top of my head, like because I blocked a lot of shit out.
Right.
But and people can go online and fact check and Google this, but I'll tell you right now, it's like 1,000 years earlier.
Wow. See that just
in that line. It's not exactly like it's maybe more like 700-800 years
something
early,
like that.
But it's in that whole realm of what you're talking about, where maybe they and it makes sense because as soon as I found that out, and they're just like, and I'm just like, what do you mean it's not the same year across the planet?
Yeah. Well,
where are you guys starting your timeline from, and why is it different?
Get this. The Portuguese colonized southern India.
Okay.
In around 1498 or something like that. Okay, late 1400s. Okay, and that's how the timeline goes. And we're there for a couple hundred years, and there still is, folks from Goa and Indians, southern India, where they have Portuguese last names, that's it. There's Portuguese castles, very weird looking Tartarian looking stuff there. Really? But there's a couple grave sites. Okay. There's 2 in particular I know of where it's all Portuguese writing.
Okay.
And they have numbers and there's all numbers all over it. But they say the guys died in like 546 and 579. There's no one. And it's clearly it wasn't removed, and it was like you can see the way it was spaced. It's well done, Mm-hmm. It's like 1,000 years off, roughly.
Really?
Maybe 900. I mean, it just depends. Who knows, right? But weird, right? And so, but I didn't know that about Afghanistan. But there is a lot of different.
It has to do with the Muslim calendar and things like that, if I'm not mistaken. Like I would have to do a little bit more research. Yeah. And I'm not pulling facts out of thin air. Like this is literally taught to me by the people of Afghanistan and the books that I had to read and pamphlets that I had to read before I went there myself.
Right. Like what are those? Remember we were talking about Stan Lee used to write them.
Yeah.
What are they called?
The PAMs.
The PAMs. Yeah. So so there's this whole thing.
The war.
So then you take that and you tie into this mud flood concept. And there's all kinds of weird videos of things in Australia is full of stuff like that. All these huge buildings. And you look at who was there and what they were colonized with and the tools they had. And it just doesn't line up. Like there's these 2 hotels and they're connected to a bank and hotel. And there's a great big tunnel that connects them. And the story is they built this tunnel because the guys driving the horse and buggies, the rich folks, didn't want the servants had red and white jackets, and the red was running into the white. So they built these big tunnels so that their jackets wouldn't run. Like it's just stupid. So yeah, there's all kinds of weird stuff. And yeah, there's stuff in North America. There's all kinds, like the star forts is something you can check out. That the star forts were things that we had supposedly in I forget when, Revolutionary War, early 1800s, 1700s type thing.
Basically like the Citadel in Halifax.
Citadel, yep, and
That's
Montreal,
a star fort,
right.
If I'm not mistaken.
But as you look into those, there's all kinds of weird shit and weird anomalies with those. A lot of them were built inland, so like it wouldn't make sense that you're defending from ships inland. It doesn't make sense. There's a lot of weird stuff with those. So yeah, they're another source of all that. So
yeah, the Citadel did seem to be quite far in. Like you're already in the port.
Right.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the mud flood thing. So some people there's all these different things. Some people say giants built these buildings. Now there's a guy I follow. He's an Indian guy named Praveen Mohan, and he's a real character. He's a typical Indian guy. He's a short guy, and he goes to all these awesome little known temples, and he has all these neat things he finds, like lathed stone pillars, right? And just the intricacies of these carvings and all these weird anomalies and strange stuff. And one thing he found was of this bent stone. And there's been different experiments. I think it was in Buffalo, New York. They did this thing where they melted this stone and they casted it. So the idea that, maybe there was a method that they knew how to cast stone. Right. So that's how they could do all these intricate carvings. And how could it be so exact? There's this one fucking thing. It's Shiva. And there's this huge stone. There's Shiva, and he's got his two chicks with him. They always have the naked girls with the big boobs, right?
Yeah.
The carvings in India, right? All that. So he's got his two girls there. And then Shiva's on this tree, and he was on the tree of life, or like they call it the blade. It could be a blade of grass, whatever. And he has this flute that plays the song of life or something. And so Shiva's up there on playing this on this carving on this, and it's this big fucking rock. It's carved out of the rock, obviously, or poured into it.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets weird. Shiva's there, and then it's going down, and he's got somebody else holding it, and he's on this tree it's supposed to be, right? But when you tap the stone, when you tap anywhere else in the carving, you tap it, it's like hitting this table. It's just a rock. It doesn't make much sound. But when you hit this tree that Shiva's playing his song on, it's like dong, 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 and then dong, dong, ding, dong. There's like 2 or 3 distinct tones, just like hitting like one of those hanging drums.
Sounds like some kind of a pentatonic scale of some kind.
Something like that.
5.
But how it's, what are the odds that it would only be on the thing that Shiva's standing on playing this song? That's not random. I mean, there's coincidence, and then there's like 1 in a million, then there's 1 in a billion. No fucking way that the only stone that makes a musical tone is the one that Shiva is standing like, and some doubter be like, well, they obviously found a stone that had a tone, and then they carved it.
It was a hollow stone.
Fuck off. Come on. Like, you can only explain away some shit.
Yeah.
So he's got all kinds of neat stuff. Yeah, there's one where this is a different one where they have these sperm, kind of like, looks like it's clearly sperm and eggs carved in, and how the hell would they have known that,
Yeah.
And there's this woman, she's there, and she's got her leg right up, and this other god is artificially inseminating her, and you see the expression on her face is like, it's not happy, it's not sad, it's not mad, she's just relaxed. So it's like clearly like a medical operation.
Yeah.
Stuff that they shouldn't have known. So yeah, so it's very interesting. The mind goes, so the idea, only giants could have built it. But it's like, well, yeah, but if you're pouring things, as a guy who worked in concrete, it's incredible what you can do with concrete.
Yeah.
All you got to do is imagine it, build the form.
Yeah.
Good to go. Right? So now could be giants pouring concrete. Hey, I'm not saying it's not that, you know what I mean? But
yeah, it's obviously
weird.
poured. Like there's
I
even
think so. I think those things were poured and shaped.
they're
It
even
makes
saying
sense.
that even the stones in the pyramid were poured.
Right, that it was a form of type of concrete. Now, and it wouldn't necessarily have to have been heat either, right? Like if you knew the chemistry right, that it would.
Alchemy.
Yeah.
Alchemy.
But it could be a heat thing too, because and the reason he went to the heat is because there's one where all the rest of these pillars and they're all carved except for this one that's not carved.
Mhm.
And when you look, but when he goes underneath it, it was warped. And when you like do plastic molds and stuff or anything in molds, if the center cools first, right, it'll warp. Same thing when you're shaping metal. If it cools too fast, it'll warp and crack, and because of the temperature fluctuations. And you can really see it's like, it looks exactly like if you poured something plastic and it kind of warped a bit,
Okay.
And so really, really cool. This stuff's all over the place, and that idea that being off by 1,000 years, and what an interesting way to explain it. Like, oh, it's the Muslim calendar. It's like, well, maybe they refuse to change. It's the original calendar.
My mind is blown right now.
Crazy, right?
I don't even know what to say. But
that's what everybody says when they hear this stuff. It's
I don't.
Great fun though, right?
I don't doubt that at all, to be honest with you, because right now I'm willing to believe
that's it. So
as far as I'm concerned, there's aliens on the dark side of the moon watching us. So I don't know.
So here's another interesting one.
Moon is a Death Star.
To put a capper on that before we play a tune. Now I've just found out about this one. This is new. There's an interesting theory that the Bible, the New Testament, took place in southern France.
Really? Makes sense, because that's where Mary Magdalene went after the crucifixion.
All these relics.
And that's where they say the bloodline of Christ went. And then they went up north into the Basque region.
Yep.
And that's where all the O negative blood comes from.
Now imagine the timelines.
That's what's running through these veins.
Imagine the timelines off by 1,000 years, right? So maybe the Crusades were in Spain when the Moors were there, right?
Really?
Did they actually go? Especially if Jerusalem wasn't where it all happened. Maybe it all happened in Paris.
Right? Paris is buried under the ground.
All kinds of shit in Paris.
Like there's a city underneath a city.
There is
just like Moscow.
So many weird things there. There's a mount. The church, I forget where it is. This Malta, and it can be. You can think of it as Mount Martyr, the Martyr Mountain, but it can also be translated as there's a German name for it. It's also be translated as Murder Mountain, right? So, and there's a church on there. I forget what the name of the church is. You'll love this. Guess what organization came from that church? The Jesuits.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the Cathars, the Knights Templar, all from France.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Crazy stuff, right? So it's a fun one. And there's a lot of, so yeah, it gets pretty heavy. But once you start kind of, it's crazy eggs. Once you go down the rabbit hole, you go down. But great, great fun.
Well, it's all true.
Yep.
Right? And can
you imagine 5 years from now where all of a sudden it's like, so what's the big project of the earth? Well, we're all gonna figure out history. We get to start from scratch and really start all over
everybody's
again.
Gonna sit down and listen to what the real history of the planet was.
And kind of figure it out too, because just imagine, it's not like the archaeologists are bad people or doing things wrong. It's more like, they're just trying to figure it out, and they work with the information they got. And
we have to do with what we have to do, right? And we were taught a certain way, and we can't help that.
But picture like Indiana Jones again, like modern Adventures of Indiana Jones. Like people are going to start, because there's all like Castle Montserrat, and there's all these weird things. You have the Holy Grail. Why was that always in France?
The Bosnian
right?
pyramids.
Like, maybe there's a reason. Yeah, maybe there's a reason why it was in France.
Maybe.
right? Like Wild Those Tales. Yeah, cool shit,
Well,
eh? Plus, they got all those stone circles, right?
One of the other things I got into I was getting into with people on TikTok this week was the Bible.
Yep.
Because you hear people, the Word of God, the Word of God. And I'm sorry, the Bible is not the Word of God. The Bible is a history book, and it's incomplete.
Yep.
Like, I'm not knocking the Bible. I'm not anti-Bible.
And highly edited, too. Right?
Yeah,
You gotta
highly
be realistic.
edited, but it's missing things. And we're being taught history, like even like you said, maybe it happened in France. So not only is it wrong, but it's from an incomplete book. Because where's the Book of Enoch?
Enoch's not in there.
That's a very prevalent one that
and
we could
also
know
a book
that's
it's edited and maybe
changed.
I was gonna say not abridged, but yeah, flat out changed, right?
Yeah, and then sold to you as the Word of God. Now,
as part of the reset, right? As
a
reset.
But it was written by man, so how can it be the Word of God? If it's written by, and it doesn't even sound like it's the word. It reads like a chronological history book.
Well, a lot of it is history, right? Like the Old Testament. So it's the history of, the early Jewish people. Although it's like, well, then how come all these stories are similar to the Bhagavad Gita and the Sumerian tablets and, Norse mythology? But again, it's like, okay, so we can say, well, maybe it's a history, but it's more of a human history. It's not just Jewish history. Like, yeah, there's a lot of that in there too. But well, here's the thing: what if all their history is wrong too? What if they've been lied to too? Right? Yeah. I mean, they're us, we're them. Like, we're all the same.
What if the Bible's history is man's history, and then all of the mythology is all of the history of the gods?
Exactly, right. Which should
or
pre-reset history, pre-cultures, because like this is the Hopi and a lot of native cultures.
Or the tall people that
think we're on how many generations, right? There's been many of these. Like, what do they call them? Like
ages of man.
Yeah, like this one was just destroyed by fire. This one was destroyed by water. This one was destroyed by whatever, right? So yeah, I love it. Cool stuff.
Yeah, man.
Don't you just want to know? I just want the book. Let me read the book.
I want to know. I do. And there is some entity somewhere that has the actual history of what happened here.
And hopefully there may be some living human being entities who know. And maybe once we go through the Vatican archives and all these different things and have a chance to really look at what's around the world and get through this tribulation we're going through right now and get rid of them.
Yeah.
Be able to go, okay, here we go, team. Now's our time. Game on.
Let's go.
Yep.
Well, one thing I always say when I ask people, if you were invisible for a day, what would you do? My answer is always like, I would go to where the secrets are and I would go take a look at those.
I'd need more than a day, but
the first place I would go would be to the Vatican.
Well, if I only had one day, clearly I couldn't go to the Vatican. So
true.
I would go.
Unless you were already there.
If I was already there, I would go. But if I had one day living where I am, where I live right now, I would go to the legislature and that whole section downtown, and I would get in there and get down to the basement and down to the tunnels. And I would also go, first thing I do is I'd go right up to that time parapet. There's all kinds. I'd start
they say they say that building here in Fredericton too was here at those times.
Yep, and I'd also go through the Governor General's house, but right to the legislature. That one there, because that one was built by J.C. Duquesne. I looked that up. Was I telling you that?
No.
Okay,
but you can tell me now.
So I looked it up because I was like, well, just kind of curiosity. Like I saw something. Someone's like, oh, well, a lot of this weird stuff happened in the 1890s, eh? So I went, okay. 1890 Fredericton, New Brunswick, and I looked at the cathedral that was built then, in particular that building, and it was built by this guy J.C. Duquesne. He was the architect or whatever, but he came from Heath, I think, in England, and to Cape Breton with his family, and his dad was a carpenter, and he was a carpenter, and he did that for a while and worked around Cape Breton, and Halifax and stuff. And remember, there was the big great fire in Halifax, right? Not the explosion, but the fire.
Yep.
And there was another big one in St. John too.
I don't know if I knew about the one in St.
He was
John.
connected to in the late 1800s. There was a big one that burned down St. John, and St. John's got all kinds of weird buildings too. So this guy went to St. John. What brought him there is because there was this opportunity to build all these buildings because there was a big fire, so they were going to rebuild it. So him and a bunch of other people went. But nobody knows who he apprenticed under. So it was common back then that you would apprentice under an architect if you're a talented young carpenter, right? But
I heard this
nobody
part.
knows. Yeah, nobody knows who he apprenticed under. So that's missing from history. And okay, fair enough. Stuff was missing. But the thing is, what kind of carpenter was this guy? Like, I've seen some of the houses that he built.
Carpenter and a stonemason are two different things.
Yeah, and if you go to like St. Andrews, there's these gorgeous homes there, and you can really tell they were built by shipbuilders, the way the angles and the look, and they're beautiful woodwork and amazing skills, right? And so some of the houses that he built were like that. They were beautiful, stuff that he designed. But then you have these other ones like that, like George Street School, and he did these ones in Halifax and a bunch in St. John. There's a big bank at St. John I want to check out.
Yeah.
That just seems weird. Like, man, that's a big leap. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't know. I mean, there's certain points in my life where I could play a certain music to a certain degree. And if you would have met me and seen me play then and then came back 4 years later, big freaking difference.
Yeah.
So maybe, but I don't know. So I'm not saying that guy and they're on like the fourth generation of children of architects, like they're an architectural family. So I'm not slighting everything they did, but I am just saying it does raise some questions. In particular, one thing I kind of like is that a lot of these guys didn't necessarily build the buildings as restore them. Because you'll see a lot of these pictures, the same with the New York and stuff, where you'll always see these construction pictures. You never see it half built. You always see the whole building and it's surrounded by scaffolding. So they're refacing it. They're putting windows in. They're this or that. But you'll never see like rubble around. You'll never see a porta potty. You'll never see a coffee cup. Like it's always, and I mean, some of that stuff you can explain away. Well, they clean it up for a picture because pictures were a big deal back then. But still, it does look a bit weird. And as you go through, you start going through them over and over and over and over and over again. And you start noticing this stuff. It's a little too coincidental, So very strange stuff.
You can walk by a building and go, why does it feel weird that it might not have been built when they say it was built?
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't.
And you think about it too, a lot of these buildings that are big, massive buildings that have been here for like as long as the cities have been here. Yeah. They were built with horse and buggy technology.
Yeah, exactly. And
but these are things that I never really thought of until really this year either, too. I've never really put any thought into those things. And now all of a sudden,
a lot of people have
these things that are popping up all over the place, little tidbits of information, little slow drips.
Yep.
Truth by 1,000 paper cuts rather than death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Right. So
then it's just like, now you're like, yeah, it does make a little bit like, okay, so horse and buggy, hey? Can we build a building like that now that can stand that long? No. None of our buildings last that long.
There's a really neat guy. He's a Canadian guy named Howdy Mikowski or something. And Howdy Mikowski. Anyways, he had one thing he was talking about. I forget what building it was. And he had a friend who was a big contractor, built like big buildings in Toronto. And what he did is he showed the guy a picture. And he said, could you build this? And he goes, yeah. He goes, okay. How long? He's like, well, it'd be about 2 years to do all the groundwork. And this is this massive building from a World's Fair, right?
Yeah.
Well, it'll be about 2 years to prepare the grounds. We'd have to level it and tamp it and, and then dig out all the things and do all the pilings and all the support and get that all done and all the plumbing And because it was one of these big buildings with like waterworks and stuff around it. So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
we do all the plumbing, we'd have to lay all that and all the sewage and all the lines and all that. And so there'd be about 2 years to get it ready. And then it'd probably be, I'd need about 500 guys, a crew of about 500 guys, maybe. I think it was something like that. So your masons, you'd have your this, your electricians, and then because then we'd have to do this and blah, 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 blah. And probably in about 5 years, we'd be able to do it, and, who knows what the cost would be. It'd be astronomical, but, that's about what it'd be. So it'd be like a 6-7 year project. And they're supposed to have been built in 2 years with horse and buggy.
Yeah.
Right. And that's one building. Some of these were like 1,200 acres.
Yeah, man.
So the World's Fairs are a trip. You get into those, and then they're all taken apart. And they say, oh, but they're all made with this. There's a name for it. Anyways, it's the idea. You build it with like rebar and wood and canvas, and then you coat the canvas with like a plaster of Paris type thing, so it looks stone. So that's kind of the explanation. Then they tore them all down, but it's just some of these, they'd be too big to do that. Anyways, yeah, interesting stuff. So.
I want to jump in and give a shout out to our buddy Jerry here on TikTok, who's been with us the whole time. There's Turbo.
Hey, Jerry,
there for
how's
you,
it going,
Jerry.
man?
You've been with us for quite a while now. I've been noticing you down there. Just wanted to say, I'll give you a shout out there.
Yeah.
Oh, look, the camera's all screwied out. There we go. Say hi back there, buddy. He's on there talking about all the rabbit holes that we can go down there stuff.
Oh, cool, man. Bring it on. Right on.
So you have a tune there.
Well, yeah. So I wrote the lyrics.
You got a harmonica and everything. I want to fucking.
Well, I brought the song, and I was going through. I had some lyrics, and
You got me excited.
I had a lyric, and it said, "If I had a hammer," and then I wrote the line. If I had a teacup, I would read the leaves. I'd look into the future and see what's in store for me. And that's all I had written.
So I'm going to turn the TikTok camera over towards you there so they can.
All right.
So
sure.
TikTok can see you and stuff.
So let's see here. So then I went, okay, I'm going to grab my guitar and write something to it. But I ended up writing just the lyrics instead. So I haven't written the music for this yet.
Improv music on the fly.
But as I recall, when I wrote that line, I was sitting with an old roommate I was with there at the time, and it was something like that. So I'm kind of going to go with D, so that gives me a D, G, and an A, right? But I could... I guess it depends on what key I want to go with, because if I do a D major, if that's the 1, then it's D, G, A. But say if that's the 5, then it would be there'd be a C and a G. So that's kind of cool.
It does sound kind of cool.
And then I went, okay, so I think I might go with that. Then if I have my slide.
Oh, shit.
But then I thought, I had some harmonicas. I haven't done this yet. I've never wrote a song with a harmonica part. So if it's in D, I want an A harp. So how that works. So this is not just the conspiracy theory podcast, Truth in Our Music. There's still music.
It's actually a song. It's actually a songwriting podcast. Yeah. But we get sidetracked with shit that's going on because what else do musicians talk about?
Well, that's it. We sit
reality.
Talk about stuff like this.
We had this conversation before.
So let's see. So what you want to do is if you want to play like happy style. So if I play a D, I'd have a D harmonica, which I don't think I brought. Let's see here. Did I? They always say on the side, or there's a little, so that's a C. This is an A. This guy is my D. So let's see. So I pop it in the old rack. I got 2 of them secondhand about 20 years ago. Never did use them. So when I play in D, like I'm not a big harmonica player. If I'm playing just in a major key, D, G, and A, it should sound really folky, right? Okay. But if you want to play blues harp, you go to the fourth. So if I go A, B, C, D, I take my A harp, but what I do is you draw on it, and I forget which hole it's third or fourth. I'm actually teaching a guy how to do this. It's funny. I always just did it. It's like I analyze every other instrument, but the harmonica I always just played. So now I got to analyze it, which is fine. So now the idea is I play A, right? But since I'm in D, I do this draw trick, and you'll notice it instantly becomes a blues harp. Maybe I got the wrong harp. Hold on, A, D. Jeez, have I done that wrong? Should be
I don't know. You're the one telling me.
I could have swore. Yeah, I got my A harp.
Whoopsie.
Unless it's the fifth. Let's see. Well, let me E. I did it wrong. Okay, it's the fifth. A, B, C, D, E. So let's see. So if I want to, that means I can't play it in D. That means I got to play it in E. So there's the sound I wanted. So I got to remember my key. Okay, so it's the fifth. A, B, C, D, E. Now I got it. So now I'm going to write this song. So, geez, I'm in a do key. Oh, so here's a dirty trick. I want to play in D, so I'm going to capo at the second fret. This is getting complicated, but why not? So now D, capo 1 is D sharp, or E, capo 1. Yeah, D. If I go to capo 1, it's D sharp. Capo 2, it's E. So now
I feel bad for people that can't follow that.
Well, now I'm back, but if you watch it slow, now you know how to do it. So now I can do my lick. If I had a hammer, I could read the leaves. I look into the future, see what's in store for me. If I had an axe, well, I'd find a tree and I'd chop it down. I'll make some lumber for me. But if I had a hammer, yeah, and I had some nails, I'd make a home that could stand up to a mighty gale. If I had a hammer, If I had me some land, well, I would grow me some food. Well, I plant me a garden, and I feed me and you. If I had me a horse, well, I grow me some hay. I'd brush him real good, and I ride him every day. But if I had a hammer, hey, yeah, and I had me some nails, I'd make me a home. That would stand up to a mighty gale. If I had me a guitar, I'd have me some fun. I'd write you a song, baby, and I'd sing it in the sun. If I had me a bullet and a rifle in my hand, I'd stand on guard, and I'd protect this land. But if I had a hammer, and I had me some nails, I'd make me a home that could stand up to any mighty gale. If I had a hammer, if I had a hammer, if I had a hammer, if I had a hammer. I think that'll work. That's not bad, eh?
That was great. Oh. I don't even want to play now. Because I'm not even going to lie, I wasn't even prepared at all this week. I haven't done nearly enough music this week.
Well, you know, that's usually my story.
Oh, that was great, man. Thank you for sharing that. Holy shit.
My pleasure. I think that'll work. Well, that was the thing. I wanted to challenge myself. And I was teaching my student. I was kind of showing the basics. So I mapped out sort of how the harmonica works, right? And I should have been practicing it, but I haven't. But the last lesson, I hauled out the rack because I wanted to play guitar so I could kind of show him how it worked. And then I played guitar and he did it. You know, it was on Zoom, so it was a bit tricky. But and I really thought, it was like, oh, I think I can do this. Because back when I was playing harmonica and trying to learn guitar and trying to put them all together at the same time.
It gets confusing.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do either one. So how the hell was I going to do both? But now I've been playing guitar for like 20 some years. I can do it in my sleep and I can sing. You know, I could barely sing and play then. So now I was like, oh, geez, I got to get back into the harmonica now. So you could see I was fooling around and missing my spots and stuff. But
well, to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, it's not a pretty good game.
Yeah, and all I got to do is practice it, memorize the song, and yeah, that'll work, eh?
I like that.
Yeah. I just love that line too. If I had a hammer, I don't know. There's just something about that, right?
I love how you explained how you put it together too, like, or how you were working on it. Like, I'm glad that we got that whole process right on film.
Yep.
Watching you this is how I did it, and then but if I do it this way, and that's what we want to see, because that's what real songwriting is about. It's sometimes you just pick it up and it just comes out, and sometimes it's just like, well, what about this and that, and then and you twist and adjust and you noob and you knob and you just do right until you got something that just, I don't even know what to say to that. That's
I think that'll work.
Absolutely beautiful is what I'm going to say there.
I'm trying to find my sound too, because I have different things I do. But one thing, since this whole pandemic lockdown and stuff, no gigs and all the nonsense, I really thought, geez, what's going to happen to music? And at first it was, all the musicians I know, they all got their jab, because they wanted to play and they had festivals to do. And it was like, whatever floats your boat.
It all made sense at the beginning when they tried to sell it to us.
At least to them.
I'll admit it made sense.
Yeah. But I knew, but this time when the blues festival came around, by then it was like, no, I don't need this thing. I'm going to go the treatment route. Yeah. And that's what I'm going to do. I don't, even though I was sick. So that was the last thing. It was like, well, I've got a swollen heart.
Real sick.
Yeah, I got a swollen heart here. I'm not taking a needle. I'm sorry. It's just not. I don't think that's a wise decision.
My doctors been tested yet.
All the doctors wanted me to do it, but it was like, and then I met some other doctors who were retired and were under the same pressure, and they're like, yeah, you don't have to do that, And it was like, okay, yeah, I agree. I think I'm going to stick to my guns.
Yeah.
So anyways, and I'm glad I did. But a lot of the boys, they all got theirs because, they wanted to get playing and they wanted to go to the bars and this. Well, I'm not, and so I don't have to play.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait this out. And so
I've always just thrown my own shows anyway.
Right. Exactly. I always book my own shows. But then here's the other thing.
I just said, fuck it.
As the clubs are closing down, the festivals, it's all kind of like
dominoes.
Yeah. And I remember thinking, people aren't going to, and this is even before all the jabs and stuff. I remember thinking people aren't going to be getting together in large groups. So we're going to have to rethink this whole thing. This whole festival, packed bars. I used to do legions and pack the dance floor and people be drinking, having a carrying time. And I'd get them going. That's what I do best, is help people drink. That's how I always pitched to the bars. You're not hiring me to play music. You're hiring me to sell booze for you. And the only way I know how to sell booze is to get people dancing and drinking and laughing and having a good time, and they'll empty their wallets and we'll all be happy. And that's how I did it, But now, so I went, okay, well, I got to rethink this and I'm going to go different. And I always wanted to be a songwriter anyways.
Yeah.
But I've got to really polish my solo acoustic gig. I got to get back to doing this. And so, but I'm such a band guy. I like all the stuff. So yeah, kind of getting into finger style and the harmonica. Suddenly you got that duo thing. I actually did a couple of gigs last summer with a buddy of mine, Rich Huckton's great guy, a great harmonica player. And we had some fun, but and it's nothing against him. It was just like, I was like, oh geez, I can play harmonica and sing at the same time too. I mean, it's easier with the other guy doing it, the singer, but and it's not that I won't work with other people, but it was like, yeah, I should be able to do this,
Yeah.
So yeah, this was kind of a good, I think I just kind of opened a Pandora's box there.
What you just explained, I think, and what just hit me and what kind of spirit saying, hey, tell them this.
Yeah.
You found out that you're a front man.
Oh yeah. I mean, I always was
you're just that guy, right? And eventually everything will just fall into place where you're just, you know what I mean?
Oh, and I backed up many people and I love backing up people. Yeah. That's a lot of fun. But if we're going to do this solo acoustic thing, how
take it serious.
Yeah, I do. I got to really get it going.
And see, what I'm doing is I'm doing a lot of learning right now because I've been pigeonholed. See, I have my own style. I have my own sound. I have me. But what I can't do is interact with a lot of other musicians.
Hey, do you want your TikTok back?
Oh, I don't really care. I'll take
you're talking now, yeah.
I'll take the TikTok back. So
I'm gonna get a copy of that though. That was awesome. Then I could learn my own song. I always do that. Yeah, it's right there. Yeah,
we have it on YouTube. Plus,
That's right.
I always do all the audio.
Oh,
recordings
that's right. Yeah.
That I am eventually going to clean up and put on iTunes and
Yeah.
Spotify and everything like that. Eventually, once
Yeah.
I get to that, once I figure
This
out how
will
to
be
do
like
that and monetize
posterity.
that shit. I'm not supposed to share that on the. I was told by a bunch of things that I shouldn't share my things.
Oh, yeah.
I know that's all cryptic and shit. And nobody knows what I'm saying there, and I kind of went woo.
But yeah,
I went all wooey for a
Yeah.
second there and lost myself. Oh, what I was talking about was because of my experience, and I knew that I was supposed to be writing about the things that I walked around the earth, and I found my original sound.
Right.
But what I can't do is mold in, and I can't shift through all of the different music genres because I spent too much time just doing army things and then writing my own music, right?
Yeah.
So now is that time where I'm watching you play a lot of different styles, and I'm learning and I'm absorbing all of the different patterns. Like I know of them, and I know you can take one song and I've actually focused on. So I'm really enjoying this sitting here and learning by watching you go through all these different styles that doing the jazz tunes.
Yeah.
And now you got that tune that sounded like we were. Yeah, it would have been like almost like down home blues.
Yeah, that
like
was sort of like Delta blues.
Yeah, Delta. That's what.
Although there's another. I don't know if it's Piedmont. Can't remember now. It's Sonny Terry and Brownie Mcgee. If you've never heard of Sonny Terry and Brownie Mcgee, they're awesome. Brownie Mcgee was a singer, guitar player, and he played with a thumb pick and fingers. And Sonny Terry and he sang, and Sonny Terry sang and played harmonica, and they were just this epic duo. They were the coolest. If you love old classic blues, they're so cool.
The dance floor hopping blues.
Oh man! And they'd play.
That's what I felt. I felt like I was in one of those.
Yeah, they were big in the '60s, but I don't know if you call it Delta blues because Delta blues is specifically Mississippi, right?
Okay,
and it's kind of a lonesome sound type thing. But there's Piedmont blues. There's a bunch of other names. I always forget. But I used to know all that stuff when I first started playing. I kind of forgot some of it. I'll have to do another. It's weird because I was all about the blues when I first started. That was it. That was, the people I listened to and used to give me CDs and all that. But then I got really into jazz. So
I'm really starting
jazz,
to lean jazz. And
yeah.
I don't know. My brain is just like, okay, you're ready to learn it.
I love it. I love it. I was at a dinner last night, actually, with a couple who spend most of their winters in Nice. And we were just talking about French music and the influence of French music on Newfie music and the chanson. And there's a guy named Georges Brassens.
I love
Newfie
Newfie
music.
music.
Cool stuff. Oh, super fun. I got to write some Newfie music tunes. I do play a bit of accordion. I'm not very good at it. My uncle was awesome. Yeah.
No, I think I remember you telling me about your uncle playing accordion.
But I play a bit. I can play Eyes the Buy and Jambalaya.
Eyes the buy that builds the boat, and eyes the buy that sails her, eyes the buy that catches the fish and brings them home to Liza.
You know who Liza is?
No, tell me.
Queen Elizabeth.
Fuck off.
Yeah. They didn't get to keep the fish, right?
Of course you didn't get to keep the fish and bring it back to
you're selling it, right?
Oh, you just changed that whole dynamic.
Pretty sure that's it, but I think it's for the queen, right? You're fishing for the queen.
I think the bass player's back.
Oh.
Sounded like car doors shutting.
Geez, maybe we'll get an epic jam in.
Maybe. See if he comes in here. Who knows? Who knows? Just got to check my phone level here to see if it's dying.
Time anyways.
It is
9:45. Geez, we're having a blast.
Yeah. Didn't even
I
realize
forgot I
it.
baked some more bread. I'm going to bring some out. So I'm experimenting with more bread.
Are you?
And I've actually got a super experimental batch on the go right now. So
explain your bread.
Well, I've been experimenting with no knead bread. So you don't knead it. You just it's flour and water and salt and yeast. That's it. And you just let it go up. And I did a nice batch of a whole wheat rye. And I had it today. Actually, I made a soup before I came out here. Yeah, your low battery, 20%. I made a lovely soup with beef, stew meat. So I had some olive oil, put it in the pot, put it nice and high, and got it all going and didn't just barely, I really browned it nice on the outside. And then I sliced up some turnip in like pencil size pieces, like about that long, like little slivers, like that. And then I did the same thing, a little bit bigger, twice as big potatoes, and chopped up some carrots and a little bit of chopped turmeric, salt and pepper. And then I boiled that up for a bit. Then I put a little whole wheat flour in as a roux, and it was delicious. I haven't made a stew like that in a while. And then I had my rye bread that I did last night, and I sliced it up with some butter and dipped it in. It was just like, oh man, it was the best. But I have an experimental batch going. There's a type of whole wheat flour. It's called Acadia. It might even be Acadia Fife, but it's a very hearty Atlantic brand. And I'm going to try and grow some this year because they claim it's really good for people who have issues with gluten. I don't think it's necessarily gluten-free, but for whatever reason, it's sort of like Camet and Amaranth or something, but it's an Atlantic
I'm just going to
Canadian
check the fire.
Yeah, no problem. So that experimental batch is going on. So hopefully it's rising as we speak. The only catch is it's new flour. I've never cooked with this flour. And if you've never baked bread or if you get into it, you learn real quick. If you change your flour, you don't know what's going to happen. Everything's all different because the flour, it just changes the way it sticks. It changes everything. Like, say, for example, you do whole wheat bread. I can do baguettes with it, and it's great. No problem. White flour, I can do baguettes. But if you mix it with rye, it won't do that. The rye goes it needs a form. So I learned that the hard way. So I made some lovely rye flatbread. So this stuff, I don't know what it's going to do. And I put the yeast in, and I started all activated, but it didn't seem like it was rising. But then sometimes you never know. I might go home now in the last 2 hours. It might have risen right up. But if it didn't, then I got to decide, okay, am I going to put this in loaves or depends. It seemed pretty heavy. So will I be able to form it into baguettes or should I do buns with it or maybe like a small mini breads? So if it hasn't risen at all, it hasn't done anything, I might wait overnight or I may. Another thing is if you've never done this is delicious. You don't need yeast for this at all.
Tell us.
Flour.
Tell us now.
Flour and water with salt. And the ratio I was using was basically 6.5 cups of flour, 3 cups of water. So pretty much 2 to 1. 2 cups of flour versus 1 cup of water and a bit of salt. And mix that up and you'll have your dough. You don't need to make it raise. You don't need to knead it or nothing. Make it like a pancake or like the size of my hand, my little tiny hand, and throw it in a hot skillet with some oil and make pan bread. You will thank me. It is un-frickin' believable. One of my favorites is make it sort of thin. I'll do it up real nice. And then once it's done, once I flipped it, I'll cut it into little strips and put butter and honey on it. Oh, baby, that's good.
Oh, baby,
It takes
baby, baby, baby.
No
baby.
time to do either.
Oh, shit.
Or again, it'd be good.
That's a lot of carbs, though.
Yeah. Well, I was no carb for the longest time.
Tasty.
Now I'm taking a break, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna have carbs. I'm gonna have healthy carbs.
It's the winter time. I need to put on the fat.
Well, that might be a nice one too while you're finishing up your stew or your soup or or anything. And it only takes a couple of minutes. We used to call them gondis growing up.
Yeah.
Like whenever mom would have some extra bread, we'd fry them in a pan. And I'm sure that's some sort of weird newfie thing for like Indian fry bread. Like somebody probably was on a boat somewhere and, back in the days and saw naan bread. And it's some sort of weird. So, India gondis, they'd call them, Nowadays, people would say that racist. I just call it, it's just kind of old fashioned ignorant, right? I mean, like, well, what in the 90s, people in Alberta used to call newfies fish people. I mean, that was just whatever.
90s people were special. You couldn't offend somebody from the 90s.
Well, and especially back.
It was really hard.
If you're from Newfoundland in the 60s and 70s, I mean, you didn't know very much about India. I mean, maybe you read it in a book, but.
And you were told everybody was an Indian, right?
And I'm sure people in India didn't know much about Newfoundland back then. I don't know. Maybe they did,
It always blew my mind how long we called them Indians for. Knowing full well that they weren't from India.
In the States, that's still popular. A lot of people,
they still
indigenous folks refer themselves as Indian,
Well, and it's
The best Newfie comic
Okay,
going
hold
now
on.
is an Indian guy. He's hilarious. Ralph Magender. He's freaking hilarious.
yeah.
It's the best. Yeah. But,
Magender.
oh man, he does this joke about it's like Newfie directions.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate Newfie joke. And I grew up listening to Al Clouston and telling yarns and all those old jokes, but it is literally sums up. It's the best. Yeah. I won't even tell it because it's too good. It's too good. I don't want to ruin his
You're going to
joke.
leave everybody in suspense there, and they're going
Look
to have
up
to go look
Ralph,
it up.
Ralph Magender. That's his name, isn't it? Ralph? No,
No,
it's not Ralph.
I can't remember what it is either.
Frig.
Even went on to this hour as 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Magender. What's your first name, Magender?
It's not Ralph.
Magender, tell us your first name if you're nearby.
He's probably like, I don't know. My uncle's called Ralph though. Real good fella.
You're a good fella there, by.
He used to run a convenience store down the road there, but
Down the road there.
opened up about 94.
Oh, shit.
Some freaking good too.
Oh, friggin' good. Tell me about it, by.
Oh man, software, right? Custard cones. Best custard cones going, man.
Oh, shit.
We went to
Are they kissing cod down
when
there?
I was a kid. We was in like the 90s. We were on our way back from Germany and we were in Newfoundland visiting with our cousins. They're like, custard cones. Let's go get a custard cone. We're like, custard cone. That sounds awesome. Because we grew up with like custard, the powdered custard, and it was old school food. And they loved it as kids. And we're like, custard ice cream. We're thinking, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? So we're all excited. Like, yeah, custard cones. We're going to get custard cones. So finally we go to this place. Just got the best ones, man. The best ones. You never had custard cones like this, man. Of course, it's coming out of a machine. We get there. It's not ice cream, man. The three of us are just like, so disappointed, thought we were going to get this exotic Newfie food. We're like, you never had a custard cone. Oh, Guamo, she's best. Yeah.
It's the best place.
Oh, man.
Oh,
Funny.
man. Sorry about all the yawning, but...
She's getting tired.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I haven't been to sleep yet.
Oh, you've had quite a day.
Well, I had a nap yesterday, then I got woken up. And then...
Right.
And then...
It happens.
Then mushrooms happened.
Oh, well, that'll do it too. That will hard sleep on those babies. But afterwards, you'll sleep really good tonight.
Then late night internet conversations happened, and then I haven't slept since.
Yep.
So I've been wandering around all day, just going blah de da de da de da de da. I was like, how do I stay awake for the podcast? That I decided that I was going to say, hey boys, want to do a podcast tonight?
Yep.
Then I went, oh shit, I haven't been to sleep yet. Oh shit, no time for a nap.
I was tired too, actually, because I went. I
My
did.
snow blowed today.
Oh, you did? Yeah, I saw the yard looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. I used to have a little snowballing business when I was a kid, so I appreciate when somebody does the yard just nice.
Well, I try and do it just nice. It was a little. See, I did a little bit of it last night, which I should have kept going because the snow was nice and movable last night.
Yeah.
But because it was all warm when it was snowing, right?
Right.
Then it got cold and it all kind of went frigid. And so this morning it was a little bit harder getting the rest of it.
You want to overdo it now.
Yeah.
You want all the extra room because when you get a couple, as every Canadian knows, the driveway starts getting.
It gets smaller and smaller as the winter happens.
You can only blow it so far. Yep.
And actually, I'm pretty lucky because I have a nice big. The way that my driveway is, I can push the snow pretty much all year wherever I want it.
Right. That's pretty cool.
So. It's not, and then here in New Brunswick, we know how the snow likes to melt and then drop 30 centimeters and then melt and drop 30.
Yep.
We all know how that likes to go.
Oh, I hope it doesn't melt anymore, man. I want those ski trails. They groomed her today. It was so nice. I'm going to ski every day I can.
Snow today for that.
Oh, it was awesome. And it's always a gamble because when they groom it, if there's not enough, the cat or whatever it is that does it, it'll kick up dirt. It gets a bit sketchy.
Oh, yeah.
So,
all the rocks and shit.
Yeah, but it wasn't too bad.
It's like snow blowing for the first. It's like snow blowing the first layer there.
Right, exactly.
Especially when you got a gravel driveway.
But there was a couple like the pines, little pine trees grow up on the edges. And so they can clearly tell that it kind of chopped it off. So there's some parts where it was sticking up and kind of Yeah, you get the odd part where you're going along and all of a sudden it'll catch a foot, so you got to watch it.
Yeah.
But I didn't fall today. I almost did. I went to pass this. These 4 people were skiing, and I was like, they're like, go ahead. So I'm like, okay, no problem. And I do classic skiing, which is on the trail, but there's this cool kind called skate skiing, and they have special skis for this, and they like skating, and they go twice as fast. But I was feeling pretty confident. Yeah. So I was like, I'll just skate past these guys. And I was looking all cool. I'm going to go ahead. Don't worry about me. And then all of a sudden, whoa, and I went, oh, Jesus. It's the worst. I kept going and I passed them, no big deal. But yeah.
I have done cross country skiing, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Done it in the military a couple times. It was great.
Next year, I'll get some skate skis for fun. I think I'm this year. I just not in the budget, so I'll just hammer down. I got a good set of classics.
You're giving me ideas now for other things to do. Maybe I'll get some skis.
Oh, for cardio in the winter, and it's how rewarding, man! It's just so fun.
Well, it does sound like really, yeah. And I can even just go like right out back here.
Yep. You can go there. The woodlot's free. There's tons there. There's Clarny Lake. On the base, there's Lindsay Valley. Which is
Lindsay
a great
Valley.
one. I haven't been there in ages. I'll have to go. I don't know if they'll let me on.
All through the running trails and everything. I did all. Yeah, I started on all my cross country skiing. Was in through the running trails there, and behind the gym.
Yep.
Realized that I really know that I became an East Coaster because now I crush my words and shit, and you can barely see my mouth move sometimes when I talk and crushing my shit. So I'm trying, especially now that we're here, I got to be like, I'm thinking about it while I'm talking.
I get worse every year. Every year I get worse.
So I'm going to sit here like this for a little bit now and just kind of get my jaw open and try and talk like a normal person.
I would just think my uncle,
no accent by.
When I was young, I lived in Upper Canada. I didn't either. And those days are long gone.
Those days are back when. Nothing.
Well, what do you think, man? We hit all the buttons?
I think we hit all the buttons. I think
my
phone's at 16%, so it's a good time to sign off of TikTok anyway and sign off of YouTube. I enjoyed your song.
I'll give you some harmonica while you give us the outro.
Oh, yes. Well, everybody, Metal Dad here, Turbo here. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Anybody that comes out or sees this on the replay, #replay. I know that you're all loving it because we're here doing our music thing, teaching things, learning things, being things, and sometimes we're wrong. Probably most of the time we're wrong because we're a bunch of stoned monkeys.
That's true.
So if you don't believe anything that we say, go ahead and look it up yourself. And if we're wrong, let us know and we'll look it up too, and that's okay. But right now, this is the truth in our music, and I'm going to stop yammering into the microphone so we can say goodbye. Everybody, have a good night. I can't even get the power off. Whatever, TikTok, you can stay there while I turn the power off.
I already have. You got your battery so low, it won't even turn off the battery.